Oh, didn't play. Welcome, 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 everybody. Oh, today actually got a little bit up there in the temperature. It's starting to cool down now.
Yep.
We had those a couple cool nights on the weekend. Wasn't too bad. Well, first of all, go ahead and introduce yourself and tell people about your channel a little bit.
Sure. Well, I mean, I didn't really come up with a very clever name. It's just my name plus outdoors. I started this channel as just like a hobby. I was already doing like everything on my channel. It's what I would already be doing anyway. And my kids, as a Christmas gift one year, I have like sort of grown children. They bought me a GoPro. And they said, "Oh, wouldn't that be neat if you started using that on your fishing trips?" And the rest is history.
Yeah.
So I just started bringing it along, and I thought, this is just what I do for fun, and I film it. I don't go out of my way to make a video most times, but it's what I already do. I 90% of the time fish locally because I do have 3 kids, wife, dog, full-time job. So as much as I'd love to go destination fishing, I am mostly a local fisherman. I will travel up to Erie and make trips like that from time to time when I can. But
Yeah.
everything I do, I think the average guy that has a little bit of fishing knowledge can do.
Yeah. And I think those are the more interesting ones. You'll get the and I'm not knocking the channels or anything, but you'll get the channels that their first cast and then they reel in this huge giant fish and that's all it is them doing that instead of actually going through the process of going out there and finding a good spot or the venture of going up and down the stream or something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and again, I noticed that you have a kayak of your own.
Mm-hmm.
And how do you like kayak fishing?
Kayaks are a really good tool around here. There's not a lot of the places I fish don't have boat ramps. So unless you can somehow drop your boat with a helicopter onto these lakes, it's going to be a kayak or something you could carry. Like I also have a small John boat,
Yeah,
trolling motor, you know. It's just a lot of places are like, the lakes I fish are overgrown with trees and there's no way, there's no good at, there's places I fish that you really got to work to get into them just to fish them. Like anyone that calls fishing like a lazy sport has never went fishing with me. Like you will, pardon my French, it'll make your. Can I say? I'll try not to swear. Uh, yeah, your butt's gonna be worn out
Yeah.
going fishing with me.
Yeah. That when I lived down in McConnellsville area, I became friends with somebody that lived in the same area I did, and he didn't have I wouldn't call it a regular job, but he would go out and we would go ginsenging and just different things, anything that you could think of to make money. We were doing, and in between that, we would go fishing, hunting, or looking for mushrooms, the whole 9 yards.
Mm-hmm.
And down there, they have the Ohio Power Company owns tons of land down there, and there's ponds all over the place, some pretty good sized ones, and some of the fishing in those ponds are better than any public lake that you would go to. But
Right.
you have to carry a machete with you or something to get through all this.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to break all your stuff down and try to carry just as little as possible to get to some of these. So yeah, I know what you mean. And some of those are like I said, is better than any public big lake that you would go to, that you just kind of pull up to the side of the road and you got a little fishing spot right there.
Right. Yeah, easy spots are nice, but easy spots are usually overfished.
Mm-hmm.
If anyone could fish them, they will.
Yep. And what you usually find is a lot of snags, especially in those
Yes.
areas. And you can usually tell when you go to the spot and there's a tree branch and there's like 20 lures setting up on top of that tree branch. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what kind of fishing do you like the best?
Good question. I like it all. And here's why. I think that if you fish for everything, it will make you a better fisherman in general. And I think and that's fine if you're like, oh, I'm just a bass guy, strictly bass, or hey, I'm just a catfishing guy. But if you're one of those, just every once in a while, switch places. Get out of
Yeah.
your like if I could tell you anything, get out of your comfort zone every now and again. If you're just a bass fisherman, go catfishing every once in a while. If you're just a cat fisherman, go fish for walleye or something. Go fish for pike or bass just a little bit, and it'll help you out.
And
It'll make you more well-rounded.
I think just fishing for one thing would kind of get boring.
That's my thing. I can't just I get bored with bass after a while, just bass, and I got to do something else. I do it all. I mean, are there fish that I catch that are annoying? Sure, but I there's not a fish that I really hate fishing for or catching.
What would be the your favorite eating fish? I guess you would call it.
It's hard to say on that. I think panfish of all varieties are really great, crappie and perch and stuff. And
Yeah.
I'm a huge fan of eating walleye, as many people are. But I'd have to put crappie and yellow perch at the top, I suppose, if I had to pick one.
Yeah. Yeah, they are good. They are good fish. Now, kind of back to the kayak thing, because a lot of things I get when I would say, "Oh, I want to get a kayak and use it to go fishing and stuff," and they said, "Well, when you catch a fish, it's going to flip your boat." or flip your kayak. Are you afraid that you're going to end up in the water and whatnot?
No. Oh, good. Sorry.
How,
Was
have you
that
had issues with catching fish and falling in the water in your kayak?
if you're fishing one of those cheap V-bottom kayaks, the ones you go out to an outdoor store and buy for $150, $200, those are tippy. And that I've actually ran into more problems like out on the river, trying to avoid hitting boulders and hitting rapids and stuff and getting water in my boat and tipping. I'm more worried about that than a fish tipping me.
Yeah.
The kayak I got now is big and bulky and stable, and no, I don't worry about it. There are scenarios that could happen. You could get a hole in your kayak, which I've seen happen to a friend of mine, and your boat just starts sinking.
Yeah.
I would say no. I'm not worried about a fish pulling me in. Although I could see how you were like maybe trying to reel in a 40-pound catfish in a kayak, and that I guess that could run you into problems if you were in a small, short, cheap kayak. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what, when I was looking at, there was tons of different kayaks, the ones that had the little pedals in them and stuff like that. And
Yeah.
just so many different ones. There was sit down in, and then the sit above, and all those. And I went for the wider, the wider type.
Yeah. I would highly suggest to sit on top.
Yeah.
Something very stable, and you get what you pay for in a kayak. If you're gonna throw $150, $200 at it, you're gonna get $200 back at you.
Yeah.
It's just with anything.
Yeah.
I put about 600 in my kayak, and then another 150, $200 worth of accessories to it. I put in extra rod holders, cleats I can anchor off with. What else did I do? I put a mount for a fish finder on it, which I never use. But because, well, the problem with fish finders I find is like, and pedal drive kayaks, is where I live, the water's so shallow it's useless. If you have a
Yeah.
pedal kayak, you better have about 2 feet under you, or you're going to be grinding on the bottom of the lake or river, and that's just, it won't work here.
That's
And and the same with a
I
fish
know.
finder, right? Like shallow water, they're not great.
Yeah.
But
And
I'm
it's,
sure some of these new ones with the side imaging and the live scope, I'm sure are good if you have that kind of money to throw at it. But
yeah, $1,000.
I don't have $1,000 burning a hole in my
Oh,
pocket. I have a very old school fish finder. It's just one of those plumb bob ones you hang off the side of the boat, and that tell you if fish are around and how far down they are.
yeah. Yeah. I'm the same way. And I don't know. I don't know if, because I got one that came with the boat, and um I went and got the mount and everything to hold it and whatnot. And probably the first few times I go out, I probably won't even bother with it until I get used to the kayak first. But most of the time, I just look at a spot and say, "Well, that looks like a good spot for a fish to be in."
Yeah. And I mean, and sometimes the most obvious spots are exactly where you
Yeah.
should. Like the one of the public lakes I fish here in the spring and fall for crappie. If you can find lumber, you found the fish. It's
Yeah.
like sometimes fishing, I think people overthink it, and fishing's not always easy, but sometimes it really is, especially in spring and fall. It's
Yeah.
and I could take any person to a lake right now that I know of, and they've never could have fished in their life, and I'll put them on fish.
Yeah. And I've seen a lot that would get the most expensive lures and stuff. And one of my favorite is a rooster tail. I've caught more fish off of it's a simple rooster tail than any fancy lure.
Yeah. I use a similar version of that. I just a MEPS size 2 or 3.
Yeah.
That's kind of that's my go-to river lure. I mean, if you have nothing else in your boat, throw that a spinner, especially in the summer.
Yeah. And I've never had issues, you know. I mean, from the bank or something, it's less than good, but I've caught more fish off of that than I've picked up. Somebody gave up fishing and they had like really expensive. Still had the tags on them and everything in the package. $40-$50 lure, and I tried that thing out and never got a fish off of it. Hooked up a rooster tail and boom, caught a fish. And it's
I started off with the rooster tails. They're great.
Yeah.
And they're inexpensive.
Yeah.
Relatively. I mean, they're not. Yeah, you can still buy them at Walmart, I think.
What about fresh bait? What kind of fresh bait do you use?
So, like crappies, my go-to if lures aren't working. Minnows. I mean, that's kind of general, but
yeah.
Catfish. For catfishing, I use, because I'm like usually pressed for time. It's a bait fish that I can get real fast. Now I could throw a cast net and get shad, but shad can sometimes, they're not always going to be something you can get every time. So the one fish I can get for bait, no matter what, is bluegill.
Yeah.
So I mean, and whether it's live or cut, it works great.
Yeah. Last time I went fishing before everything started drying up, somebody had I was out there fishing, and it was kind of funny because there was two people on kayaks going by and trying to catch fish, and I was using a night crawler, and I was getting some small fish and a couple mid-size little catfish. And then I'm still looking at this old dead bluegill that's sitting on the bank, and then next time I lost my worm, I went and put that thing on there and tossed it out there, and probably wasn't even 10 minutes, and boom, I mean, it was a pretty good sized catfish. Brought it up and then lost it on the bank, but still I got to see it.
I'll tell you a funny story real quick about fishing with a bluegill. And this kind of crazy. So like when you put one of those big catfish bobbers out and you put a live bluegill underneath of it, when you toss it out, the bluegill is going to move that bobber around a little bit, right?
Yeah.
A lot of times when you first cast a bluegill, a real lively one out there, it can even take that catfish bobber under, right? So I'm fishing up at a lake about an hour north of me one time, and I got this old Shakespeare ugly stick, old rod, and I throw it out there on a big bobber bluegill. I'm fishing for flatheads. The bobber hits the water. I'm not kidding you. It hit the water. As it hit the water, it went down and never came back up. And I thought, bluegills holding it under right now. It just hit the water. It already had a 30-pound flathead on it.
Oh, wow.
And I commenced to fighting this thing. Like, I've never seen anything like it in my life ever again, where it hit the water and it already had a catfish on it that big.
Wow.
It's like I threw a layup and it was just waiting to catch it. Like I must have literally put that bluegill in that catfish's mouth. And I fought this thing, ended up breaking my rod, breaking the
Oh,
net,
wow.
breaking everything, but I got it to the bank.
Oh, wow.
And that was my introduction to flathead fishing.
Yeah, that was my grandpa's pond. That's where it got me hooked to catching fish. I was just using a cane pole,
Mm-hmm.
and my grandpa would throw out old bread, and you could see the fish up there chomping. So I said, "Oh, I got an idea," and I wasn't very big or anything, and so I got a piece of bread, and I put the hook in there and tossed it out there, and pretty soon a big catfish come up there, and I'm trying to pull it in. I put it over my shoulder and ran up the bank and got him up on the shore and yelled at my grandpa, and he comes running out there, and because I guess this was the big catfish of the pond, and he said I don't remember his name or anything, but my grandpa had a name for it and everything, and said, "Oh, I can't believe you caught him. How'd you catch him? I've been
Catfish
after
hunter.
him for years." And all it was bread and a cane pole.
Yeah. Some of those pond cats, if you go there at the right time, they'll hit on about anything.
Oh,
Especially if they're kind of hungry,
yeah.
and some of the ponds where people feed them, like they throw that floating fish feed out there. If you go out there, I was just down there at a friend's house last week when he was feeding his catfish, and he's like, "Throw your bobber over there," and he threw some fish food. All I had was a bobber and a waxworm on, and he threw some fish pellets out there. I got like a 6 or 7 pound channel cat. And I was like, "That's a first, a cork bobber and a waxworm 7 pound channel cat." That was fun. It's cheating, but it's still fun.
Yeah. And oh man. That got me hooked. After that, I was wanting to fish all the time.
Yeah.
And that was it. Me and my grandpa's thing was going fishing. And that's all I fished with was a cane pole for the longest time. And then he got me a regular, I don't know, a Zemco or something like that,
Mm-hmm.
a little push button thing.
Yep.
And that's what I graduated to. And oh boy, I had
Yep.
so much fun.
Yeah. When I was a kid, it was a fly rod with a spinning reel, and I would just go out for hours and catch bluegills and crappies.
Yeah.
5, 6, 7 years old. That was my introduction. And then I found catfishing. I thought, wow, I could just throw the bait out there and wait for the fish. That was another big discovery. Yeah. I don't even have to go looking for them. They can come find me.
Yeah, I remember when it was time to go fishing. Uh, my grandpa had like a few acre garden, and I still remember he had the old coal mining helmet that had this uh, lantern on the front of it, and we would go out and get night crawlers the night before we would go fishing, and I was always excited because that meant we was going fishing, and then the next morning we get up and it's pouring down raining. And I saw, oh man, I wanted to go fishing so bad. And so we could still go fishing. And he in his truck he had one of the camper shells on the back of it, and we backed down into this um, side where the lake was or something, and he just put the tailgate down, and we sat down inside there, and we was just catching fish left and right. It
Yeah.
was pouring down rain.
Huh.
Yeah.
You
I
ever?
still don't remember what lake it was or anything. I never knew the name or anything, but I wish I knew just to go back there and go fishing again.
You got Caesar's Creek down around where you are, right?
Caesar?
Yeah. Is that?
Don't know.
Oh, okay.
We got Tuscaroras, and I forget what the other one that goes into Tuscaroras.
How
But
about Lake Cowan? Does that sound right?
Lake Cowan.
Cowan Lake?
The big one lake we got here is, well, there's Dillon. We got Salt Fork.
Oh, okay. Okay. I was
And
kind of off a little bit.
Buckeye is down. It's a good ways away, but
I've
it's,
actually been working around the Nelsonville area. Is that more your neck of the woods?
oh no,
Still
Nelsonville.
way further over that way. Okay.
Yeah, that's way south from here. That's actually where I was born in Nelsonville, Ohio.
Okay. I've
Yeah.
been there for the last 4 weeks every day, driving back and forth.
Yeah. That's close to, um, well, not real close, but it's in that general area, Skingham. I think it's Burr Oak. They have Burr Oak up there, little lake.
Yeah, I've seen signs for it, and I've seen a lake called Lake Hope.
Yeah,
That's a gorgeous lake. It's got foothills in the background, real clear.
yeah,
I put that on my to-do list.
yeah. I wouldn't mind going down there because it's I miss that end of Ohio.
It's different.
Because Millfield, Ohio, is where my grandpa lived, and he lived at the actual coal mine that blew up. He was actually the only survivor of that.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and he never left that area. But yeah, that neck of the woods. Oh, I like that so much better than up here. Nothing wrong with the area or anything. It's just what I'm more used to down there.
Mm-hmm.
Seems like, except for like Muskingum River, that's just it's muddy, but there you get some big catfish out of there.
Yeah. Off the subject, if you're a deer hunter down there, way different than being a deer hunter in the flatlands where I live. You
Oh,
have and that's where I started hunting, believe it or not, because there's not a lot of hunting. I'm not trying to get off the fishing topic too much, but I started hunting here obviously a little bit, but we started going to Meigs County when I was a kid and walking up and down them hills. It'll make a man out of you real quick, especially if you have to
oh
drag a
yeah,
dead deer up and down 2 miles.
yeah. That's why the ginseng is so good
Mm-hmm.
because you have to walk up and down these steep incline valleys and stuff.
Yeah.
And because that's the best, because nobody does that. Everybody goes and tries to find it in the flat areas, and it's already gone. So we used to go up and down those things and clean up.
Yeah. So you're a mushroom hunter, I take it too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
When
me too.
again, it was so much better south of Zanesville. It's so much better. I mean, you can still find them up here, but uh, there's not.
You gotta look for woods up around where I live.
Yeah, yeah. It's I don't know, and you got to know a lot of people. If not, that they don't.
Mm-hmm.
They're stingy.
Oh yeah. Yeah, mushroom hunting ground sacred. So is hunting to a lot of people. I
Oh
knew a
yeah.
guy 10 years before he let me hunt. 10 years. He's like, yeah, I guess you can hunt. I've known you a decade.
Yeah, I used to work for this guy that he had property all around here, and uh, he could. I just asked him if I go hunting or I'd go out in the woods and do whatever. Oh yeah, just to let me know when you're going out. And that way, I don't accidentally think you're somebody
Mhm.
bad.
Funny
And
thing. Good.
unfortunately, him and his wife had issues, and he ended up going back into the service and selling all of his property. So,
Yeah.
uh, yeah, but
Yeah. Somebody in the comments just said, just ride the dead deer down the hill. That's what we did. That's exactly what we did. That was one way you could save a little effort, is to ride the dead deer down the hill. We absolutely did that.
yeah, back in the day, this a long time ago, we used to find deer, um, and take them back to the house. And this was in the Connellsville area, and our our wives would get extremely mad at us because we would take stuff out of the refrigerator and let the meat sit in the refrigerator for a few days. And bathtubs would get messy,
Hmm.
but that's how you lived down in it, because it's no major cities or anything. You're out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
But nowadays, I wouldn't want to do any of that stuff.
No, I was definitely uh, a little more fearless when I was younger fishing. I could tell you a lot of the times in my life where I've almost died, it's been when I was fishing.
Oh,
And uh, dumber back then. Like I said, now we have this smartphone in our pocket that tells us when bad weather's coming. And when we were kids, we were just like, well, let's go fishing. And then we'd go out on the lake and you'd be in a thunderstorm and lightning.
oh,
You
yeah.
know, one time I was out on Grand Lake St. Mary's, which is the biggest man made lake in Ohio. And I was out in the middle of it and my buddy's motor stopped working.
Oh
And
no.
we got hit with a thunderstorm, lightning, everything. We're just the only thing out on this lake. And the only way we got back to shore is the wind blew us to shore. That was it. That's what happened. We were at Mother Nature's mercy. I've been
Oh
caught in a
man.
trot line before. I've had my waders fill up with water. Uh, all kinds of crazy stuff can happen to you while you're fishing.
Yeah, that's
But that was younger, dumber version of me. I was also willing to go to the Marines back then too. Like I said, I was a little more fearless when I was younger.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I haven't had any, close calls when fishing or something, but hunting, that's a different story. Well, there's times when I was fishing and a bear walked up when I was in Idaho. I was out there fishing on a stream and catching salmon.
Mm-hmm.
And bear comes up, and I just sat there. And my friend that was with me, he says, "Whatever you do, just stay perfectly still. He might not see us." And he set the bear sitting there, and he goes off into the water, and I turned around and said, it worked, and my friend's gone. He took off running. I'm like,
Wildlife said.
where'd he go?
Wildlife says at least you guys don't have to worry about gators
Yeah,
up north.
that's true.
I was just getting ready to say I lived in North Carolina. I know all about it. Not North. Well, I guess not so much North Carolina, but I lived in the South during my military time, and I was in 14 different countries, most of them jungle and desert, I was around all kinds of crazy stuff that could hurt you and kill you. So I understand, man. I went spearfishing while I was in Okinawa, snorkeling.
Oh, that's cool.
I talk about a culture shock from Ohio, right? Like going to Japan when you're 18 years old.
Yeah.
And then now you're like trying to learn how to spearfish all of a sudden. That was definitely a culture shock. I was so stupid. I wore my dog tags in the water and it was drawing all the wrong kind of attention. So here I got this lure around my neck and the sharks and the barracudas like, hey, hello. Yeah, I was dumb back then.
Yeah, them barracudas, I'd be scared of them running into a school of those in the water. Those things, the little razor teeth they have. Oh man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I had to pick up ocean fishing when I lived in these countries or states, either or, that had I never lived by the ocean, so I had to learn how to fish the tides. And luckily, I had some people in the Marines with me were from coastal states, and they gave me pointers. And I was lost, like fishing in the ocean, but I kind of learned. I was there long enough to kind of figure it out. But I've whatever I learned, I've brain dumped, because ever since I've left, I think I've seen the ocean once or twice since I left. So we're a landlocked state here.
My first ocean experience was California, Eureka, California. At that.
Okay. Is that anywhere near 29 Palms?
I have no idea. It's
is it desert? Is it desert?
No. It's the north part of California.
Okay. Northern California. Okay.
Yeah. And I traded a few things because I had my own flea market stand where I was buying boxes and stuff for $1, and I would turn around and resell the stuff in the boxes and stuff like that. And I traded like 2 or 3 boxes for a deep sea rod and reel.
Mm-hmm.
Never used it before. The first thing I did is go to cast that thing out, and big old mess. And took me forever to figure out how to use that dang thing. And then I started casting it out, and I didn't know anything about the tides or anything like that.
Right.
And realized that I wasn't really casting that far because I didn't want to get my feet wet, which didn't make much sense. So my next thing was to take my shoes off and go way out there and then cast it and then bring it back. Then I found out that the waves get big.
Yeah.
I held on to that pole though. You ever see these videos where there's somebody standing out there and they keep getting knocked back down into the tide? That was me holding on to a pole. The funny thing is, when I got back up to shore, I had a fish. Don't know what fish it was, but I didn't want to touch it. It had pokey things all over it, and I said, nope, not going to do it. And that was my experience for a good while. And then I went from there to a dock.
Wow.
And yeah, that was it for that.
Jeez. Yeah, the closest thing we in Ohio have to an ocean is Lake Erie. I mean, but having said that, Lake Erie can really mess your world up. Like if you think that fishing out on a lake is easy, go up to Lake Erie and get back with me. Like you can go out in 2-footers and end up in 6 to 8. I mean, rolling white caps that just ruin your life real fast up there. And that weather up there on that lake can turn on a dime. I always call Lake Erie as like an angry ex-girlfriend. It will mess you up.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of stories about people going out and not coming back
Mm-hmm.
from little boating. They're used to the boat, fishing in the lakes down here, and then they go up there, and it's like they don't come back.
We you know what a smoker craft is?
Not right.
Little V bottom boat.
Oh,
We
okay.
we were fishing in one of those in one of the rivers that goes into that lake. And that boat was perfectly fine to fish the river and the bays. But we seen people out perch fishing, and they were probably like a mile or two out. And you could see the boats. You could see a long way on that lake. And we're like, "Oh, I bet we can get out there." And we started going out there in this little boat, and the first wave comes across the bow and just fills the boat with water. And we're like, "Oop, all right, back to the river. Don't want to die to go catch some perch."
Yeah, that's like when you see the boats heading out for and they're hitting these waves, and there's
Mm-hmm.
always that girl in the background in the back that just gets flipped off the back of it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, I don't know if I want to be part of that.
Oh.
Yeah.
Is there a type of fishing that you enjoy above all others? Like, I mean, what makes you? Or I mean, are you kind of like me? You're happy going after anything?
Yeah, I mean, if I have to sit there and go after one fish and then be out there for a long time not catching anything,
Mm-hmm.
I would rather, um, even if it's a bluegill, a little bluegill. I mean, you get a good sized bluegill; those things are better fight than some largemouth bass.
I've always heard this. Like, this is something old guys say to me all the time. Imagine if a bluegill was 10 pounds. You know, what kind of fight would that be?
Yeah,
Yeah, because they pull so hard, and they're lucky to be a pound. You know.
yeah. It's it's um and that's the thing. And I was talking to Eric about this. I said, nowadays they got this very strong fishing line, and it's just and you pull it right in, and you pull past the fight and everything. And I used to be, you know, you would get a 4 pound test or something like that, and it was a challenge to bring a big fish in because you just didn't go and pull it right in, or the line would snap.
Mm.
Nowadays, the line is so strong, it's hard to actually snap it.
Sorry about that.
Thank you, Dana B, for becoming a member. I appreciate it. Actually, I think you're my first member. uh, but yeah, I'm like, it doesn't matter what fish it is. I mean, um, when I was like in Idaho and in Oregon, um, everybody was salmon fishing, and I didn't, and they had special bait and everything for salmon, and I would sit on the bank with the night crawler, and I'd still catch the salmon, but I would catch other things, and I had more fun than a lot of them people out there catching the salmon.
Wow, I can't say that I've caught a salmon. That's
Oh,
still on my bucket list. I actually finally marked steelhead off and brown trout off my list this last year or two.
oh, I love trout.
Is there a fish that's on your bucket list that you really want to get?
Um, I I like to do a lot of the ocean fishing. Some of those. There's a channel that I watch that it started from a TV show, and found out that he took a catamaran that was sank from the hurricane, and he built it up, and he goes around. And one of his friends fishes off the back of this thing, and some of the fish they get, and they'll just get the lemon, and just they'll have the fish right on the boat, and they'll eat the fish right there. And they're the freshest and best tasting fish, and I'm like, oh man, that would be so much fun right there.
I've caught fish before and made them on the riverbank or lake that I was at, shoreline, whatever. But I don't think I've ever took a bite out of a crappie after I caught it or something. I mean, I guess you could get away with that with salmon and tuna, fish like that, where you could eat them raw. I don't know that I've ever caught a fish that's
trout.
Yeah, I suppose you could with trout. I don't normally catch fish that are known as sushi quality fish.
Yeah. I couldn't see cutting open a catfish and just gnawing
taking
down
a bite. Taking a bite. Yeah, you might spit that out. I don't know. I was just had been a few months since I cleaned the catfish, and just remembering, oh yeah, they got red meat you got to cut out.
Yeah.
I get so used to cleaning one thing or the other that like when I catch another, like, oh yeah, this is a fish with a ton of red meat that I got to spend a little time trimming.
Yeah.
And pike are kind of like, a different difficulty of cleaning too. The extra set of Y bones that you got to figure out to get out too. And trout, that steelhead, I just gave up. The captain of the boat when we caught it was just like, just put it in the oven and pull them out. And that's what I did. And that was nice. The bones pulled right out, and I just kind of ate around them.
Yeah. One of the things I did when I was in New York, because I kind of lived in the woods for a bit when I was down there. And one of the cool things that I learned, because I learned this from my grandpa, but you get the fish, and you just, the head and all, and you clean them out and everything, but you get mud or clay, whatever the case may be, and you pack around there, and you set it in the coals, and once that thing dries out and turns hard, you crack it open, and that's some of the best fish you'll ever eat. And that's how I would eat the trout. And once you crack that open, because they say, oh, you got to clean the scales off, or the skin off and stuff, and the skin would just come off with the mud or the clay.
I find
good stuff.
Do you clean a lot of fish?
I haven't for a long time.
Okay.
Just catching and put them back in there.
I was going to ask you your opinion between old school knives and the electric knives.
Yeah, I seen you using an electric knife, and I was like,
now I can do both.
Yeah,
but when it comes to cleaning a sheer volume amount of fish, a lot of fish at once, I would go with the electric knife.
Yeah, I got.
If you're just going to clean a couple old school way, even the skin and scale, if you're doing a few, but if you're doing a lot, I'd go the electric knife way.
Yeah, I got a thing for somebody wanting to me to do a review on it and stuff. But it's a knife that you can interchange the handles and stuff like that. I haven't tried it out, but I'm wanting to give it a try if I find something big enough to catch. But
yeah, my kit came with a 12-inch blade that I've yet to use yet. I'm guessing that's for saltwater fish. Even I don't know, I cleaned like a like a 10 or 11 pound channel cat, which is really at the top of what I normally keep. But the catfish in that lake are so overpopulated that I don't mind taking them out of there. Like,
Yeah.
there's a reason I caught a swimming pool, or that little kiddie pool you've seen that I
Yeah.
just throw the fish in while I'm cleaning them. There's a reason I caught that many in 2 hours. And that was not actually using conventional tackle. That was actually using jug lines.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but they're not jugs, they're pool noodles.
Yeah.
Because I'm cheap. Really, I just cut up
You
the
have to
kids'
be
pool
nowadays.
noodles. I cut up some of our kids' pool noodles. Like, I'll get you more.
Yeah.
And I just made some simple rigs with them, and I'll throw those out. And man, if you want to talk about putting fish, if you're just like wanting fish for dinner and you want them fast, that's the way to go.
Oh yeah, I bet.
And it's fun chasing them. Like, you were like, well, I like to reel them in. Like, you'll have so much fun chasing these things out and around on a kayak. You'll forget you had a rod in your hand to begin with. It's fun. I'm telling you.
Yeah. When I was down in McConnellsville, we would, because Muskame River runs right alongside of Route 60,
Mm-hmm.
and there's critters, raccoons, possums, and stuff that they didn't make it across the road.
Right.
And they'd be sitting out there for a few days. So we get an old Jada sack, Brillo sack, and pick a few of them up and put some rocks in there and toss it out next to where we were going to fish for the night. And oh man, we would be pulling in so many fish because that smell would draw in the catfish for miles on that river.
Mm-hmm.
And that, you're not allowed to do that, but we didn't know that back then.
You can't legally noodle in our state.
Oh, really?
No, not in
Didn't
Ohio.
know
You
that.
can't. No, can't stick your hand in a catfish's mouth in this state. But I had a game warden tell me that if you can catch a walleye with your hands, that's legal. You can grab them. Like, I don't understand that though. I don't know. It was a game warden that told me that. He's like, I was standing in a spillway. He's like, if you can grab one of these walleye or sawguy, you're allowed to, but you can't grab a catfish with your hands. I don't understand it, but
Are they afraid that somebody gonna get?
I don't know if it's a fish protection law or trying not to get people's fingers hurt law.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not a law. I don't know. I don't understand them. We just now can fish with 3 rods instead of 2. That was a new rule that I think I seen as a positive.
What? I always thought there was no limit for poles in the water per person.
There's 3. It's 3 in Ohio.
Oh, okay. Huh.
Now, depending on who you run into is going to depend on whether or not you get in trouble for it. But most people aren't fishing with 4 rods by themselves, unless like you're catfishing, right? And you got a bunch of rods out. But if you and your buddy go out, I mean, you can fish 6 rods. And I can tell you from experience with catfishing, 6 rods is plenty. You're actually starting to worry about a lot of tangling issues at that point. Because you can only, I mean, you get a big cat hooked, you're trying to reel rods in so they don't run into them.
Yeah. I did the whole just my thing is usually just 2. I'll usually put one with bait and let it set, and then I'll sit over on the side and cast out with a lure or something.
Mm-hmm.
Or just leave the one in there and just sit in a chair for a while.
I sometimes get bored while I'm catfishing, so I'll have 2 rods out, and that third one we're allowed to use, I'll fish for like bass or crappie or something, just to kind of like fill the time gaps between bites. Because sometimes you might go an hour between a bite catfishing, and I always like to be doing something. I get bored just sitting around staring at rod tips. So I like to be doing something.
Yeah. I mean, I've got Game Ward come over when I had to. Me and my kids would go out, and everybody's pole would be out. And he thought that these were all my poles. I said, no, it's the kids, and they're off somewhere playing. And I said, they're really here. They're here. And I'd scream for them, tell them come over, and they'd come over and said, you guys need to stay by your poles. Yeah. And that's normal for usually. I've got one boy that's good. He loves fishing. The rest of them will sit out there for about 15 minutes. Oh, no fish, I'm done.
Yep. Like if you're gonna take kids fishing, and you know a spot where you can really score big on something, take them there. Like,
oh yeah,
they're like just like the catfishing, like I told you about. Like if I wanted my kids to be like not getting bored, if I put those 12 jug lines out, I couldn't even, like, you're gonna see this video come out. I'm gonna try to put it out this weekend of this last jug lining fishing trip I just did. I was so undermanned because I was out there by myself, and at one point I had 10 of them going at once. And when you got 10 jug lines cruising around and you're in a kayak, you can only get to them as quick as one man with a paddle can. So what I had done was I stuck a cooler on an island because a cooler can really weigh a kayak down when it's full of catfish and water. I stuck it on an island, and I was collecting them, throwing them in my boat, taking them to the cooler, putting them in the cooler, rinse and repeat until the cooler was full. And that you're going to see that in my next video. You're going to see how chaotic it is.
Like a video game.
Mm-hmm.
How many fish can I get before the time runs out?
Yeah, well, no, it was more of a question of like, when am I going to run out of cooler space? And it was at the 2-hour mark when I ran out of cooler space.
Yeah.
And I even said in the video, I'm like, how many of these things do I really want to clean? You know, you got to start thinking about like I'm going to be the only one cleaning these things too. So
yeah,
I rarely get help cleaning fish. So I'm like one of the few people that I know that knows how to even clean them.
Yeah.
Or there's a lot of my friends pretending not to, so they don't have to help. It could be one or the other.
Yeah. I had a job down there in Dustin, Florida. I was the person that sat at the back of the boat tossing bloody meat out the back and handing everybody beers. And one of the guys that would clean the fish for the client, man, he would go in here. And I tried to get him to teach me how to fillet. And some fish are real easy. But yeah, and he said it was really hard for him to go slow because it's actually harder to go slow than it is fast on some of them fish.
Yep, I get that.
There are some fish that you really have to, there's little cuts here and there, but
yep, some fish have bigger ribs, so you have to go up and around them.
Yeah, and I was like, yeah, some of those things I never did get the whole thing down, but some of them, like I said, were really, really easy. And you'd flip them over and just pull the skin off with the cut and everything. It was very cool.
No, I just say, like, if you don't know how to clean them, just start watching some videos. If you ain't got nobody an old timer to teach you, or one of your friends to teach you, just start doing it.
Yeah.
I was lucky enough I had some pointers at least, but a lot of stuff I had to figure out on my own. Like I was never shown how to clean a northern or a catfish. I was always shown. I think I was only shown how to clean panfish, and that's great. But panfish are one of the easiest things to clean.
Yeah. Well, we're at the hour. Is there anything you want to? You got anything coming up? I know you said you got this video coming out here.
Yeah, I got enough footage to put out a shorter video. I've been working a lot, so I haven't been putting out a ton of footage. But yeah, this weekend I'll probably drop a video.
Okay, that's good. So if you guys want, make sure you go over and check his channel out. The link is it's pinned to the top, and there's also a link down in the description. Go ahead and and look at that. Grace is on top of it tonight. Go check out his channel. A lot of good content there. And like he said, he's going to put out a video this weekend. Other than that, thank you for coming up here and telling us about your channel and whatnot. And we'll have to catch you on the next one.
Thanks for having me.
Oh yeah.